Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God, back with you with the next video in my series reading Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. Without further ado, returning to Oliver Twist as read by Lord Naren White. "A nice, humane person to prefer a charge against a poor boy," said Fang, with a comical effort to look humane. "I consider, sir, that you have obtained possession of that book under very suspicious and disreputable circumstances, and you may think yourself very fortunate that the owner of the property declines to prosecute. Let this be a lesson to you, my man, or the law will overtake you yet. The boy is discharged. Clear the office." Damn me," cried the old gentleman, bursting out with the rage he had kept down so long. "Damn me, I'll—" "Clear the office," said the magistrate. "Officers, do you hear? Clear the office." The mandate was obeyed, and the indignant Mr. Brownlow was conveyed out, with the book in one hand and the bamboo cane in the other. In a perfect frenzy of rage and defiance, he reached the yard, and his passion vanished in a moment. Little Oliver Twist lay on his back on the pavement, with his shirt unbuttoned, and his temples bathed with water, his face a deadly white, and a cold tremble convulsing his whole frame. Poor boy, said Mr. Brownlow, bending over him. "Call a coach, somebody pray, directly." A coach was obtained, and Oliver having been carefully laid on the seat, the old gentleman got in and sat himself on the other. "May I accompany you?" said the bookstall keeper, looking in. "Bless me, yes, my dear, sir," said Mr. Brownlow quickly. "I forgot you, dear. I have this unhappy book still. Jump in, poor fellow. There's no time to lose." The bookstall keeper got into the coach, and away they drove. Chapter 12, in which Oliver is taken better care of than he ever was before, and in which the narrative reverts to the merry old gentleman and his youthful friends. The coach rattled away over nearly the same ground as that which Oliver had traversed when he first entered London in company with the Dodger, and turned a different way when it reached the Angel in Islington, stopped at length before a neat house in a quiet, shady street near Pentonville. Here a bed was prepared, without loss of time, in which Mr. Brownlow saw his young charge carefully and comfortably deposited, and here he was tended with a kindness and solicitude that knew no bounds. But for many days Oliver remained insensible to all the goodness of his new friends. The sun rose and sank again, and many times after that, and still the boy lay stretched on his uneasy bed, dwindling away beneath the dry and wasting heat of fever. The worm does not work more surely on the dead body than does this slow creeping fire upon the living frame. Weak and thin and pallid, he awoke at last what seemed to have been a long and troubled dream. Feebly raising himself in the bed, with his head resting on his trembling arm, he looked anxiously around. "What room is this? What have I been brought to?" said Oliver. "This is not the place I went to sleep in." He uttered these words in a feeble voice, being very faint and weak, but they were overheard at once. The curtain at the bed's head was hastily drawn back, and a motherly old lady, very neatly and precisely dressed, rose as she undrew it from an armchair close by, in which she had been sitting at needlework. "Hush, my dear," said the old lady softly. "You must be very quiet, or you will be ill again. And you have been very bad as bad could be, pretty nigh. Lie down again. There's a dear." With those words, the old lady placed very gently Oliver's head upon the pillow, and, smoothing back his hair from his forehead, looked so kindly and loving in his face that he could not help placing his little withered hand in hers and drawing it round his neck.
Save us,
said the old lady, with tears in her eyes.
What a grateful little dear it is. Pretty creature. What would his mother feel if she had sat by him as I have and could see him now? Perhaps she does see me,
whispered Oliver, folding his hands together.
Perhaps she has sat by me. I almost feel as if she had. That was the fever, my dear,
said the old lady mildly.
I suppose it was,
replied Oliver.
Because heaven is a long way off, and they are too happy there to come down to the bedside of a poor boy. But if she knew I was ill, she must have pitied me even there, for she was very ill herself before she died. She can't know anything about me, though,
added Oliver after a moment's silence.
If she had seen me hurt, it would have made her sorrowful, and her face has always looked sweet and happy when I have dreamed of her.
The old lady made no reply to this, but wiping her eyes first and her spectacles, which lay on the counterpane afterwards, as if they were part and parcel of those features, brought some cool stuff for Oliver to drink, and then, patting him on the cheek, told him he must lie very quiet, or he would be ill again. So, Oliver kept very still, partly because he was anxious to obey the kind old lady in all things, and partly, to tell the truth, because he was completely exhausted with what he had already said. He soon fell into a gentle doze, from which he was awakened by the light of a candle, which, being brought near the bed, showed him a gentleman with a very large and loud-ticking gold watch in his hand, who felt his pulse and said he was a great deal better.
You are a great deal better, are you not, my dear?
Said the gentleman.
Yes, thank you, sir,
replied Oliver.
Yes, I know you are, said the gentleman. You're hungry too, ain't you? No, sir,
answered Oliver.
Hem,
said the gentleman.
No, I know you're not. He is not hungry, Mrs. Bedwin,
said the gentleman, looking very wise. The old lady made a respectful inclination of the head, which seemed to say that she thought the doctor was a clever man. The doctor appeared much of the same opinion himself.
You don't feel sleepy, do you? Or don't you? You feel sleepy, don't you, my dear?
Said the doctor.
No, sir,
replied Oliver.
No,
said the doctor, with a very shrewd and satisfied look.
You're not sleepy, nor thirsty, are you? Yes, sir, rather thirsty,
answered Oliver.
Just as I expected, Mrs. Bedwin, said the doctor. It's very natural that he should be thirsty. You may give him a little tea, ma'am, and some dry toast, without any butter. Don't keep him too warm, ma'am, but be careful that you don't let him be too cold. Will you have the goodness?
The old lady dropped a curtsy. The doctor, after taking the cool stuff and expressing a qualified approval of it, hurried away, his boots creaking in a very important and wealthy manner as he went downstairs. Oliver dozed off again. Soon after this, when he awoke, it was nearly 12 o'clock. The old lady tenderly bade him good night shortly afterwards, and left him in charge of a fat old woman who had just come, bringing with her a little bundle, a small prayer book, and a large nightcap. Putting the latter on her head, and the former on the table, the old woman, after telling Oliver that she had come to sit with him, drew her chair close to the fire, and went off into a series of short naps, checkered at frequent intervals with Sunday tumblings forward, and divers moans and chokings. These, however, had no worse effect than causing her to rub her nose very hard, and then fall asleep again. We'll go ahead and stop there for this week. As usual, I want to say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe,
as it greatly helps the channel.
Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.